Hey folks, BGS back again. This is, might be a ramble because I don't know exactly what direction that I'm going to take this in. So it may not be as coherent as some of the other things I put out because right now my thoughts are all over the place. So bear with me. Just want to talk about people trying to reboot the gender war as it's dying down. We know we have Me Too on the outside amongst the white world that's actually not really heating up the gender war, but what it's doing is actually killing relationships between men and women. You would think that the Cosby thing and the Weinstein thing and the Me Too, where women are accusing men of all kinds of stuff, would actually heat up the gender war, but it's actually doing the opposite. It's actually cooling off the gender war because it's scaring men away from women. If you scare men away from women, there is no interaction. And if there's no interaction, then nobody's complaining about having a good woman or having a good man or anything else like that because everybody's in a neutral corner. So I think Me Too is doing the exact opposite of what may be intended to spark a gender war. But as we move into Trump's, through Trump's second year, not into, but through Trump's second year and into his third, and as the elections are coming up, and Trump's policies, some things that he promised to do that probably didn't need to be done, but also other things that probably had to be done anyway, because they were coming, as I said they were coming, which is more restrictions, less, how can I say, social services, increase in poverty as we see it. You can believe the numbers as far as having jobs or job creation, with jobs at what price and what amount of pay as compared to inflation. That is going to cause a restriction on people. That is going to cause people, not only black society, because like I said, when the white society gets a cold, black society gets a flu. And if 40% of white people or the dominant society is falling out of the middle class, where do you think that's going to put black people? 40% of black people were already out of the middle class in the best of times. And Antonio Moore, Tone Talks, actually does a very good job of actually documenting that on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis. What does that mean for the black family, for black male and female relationships? Guess what? When you didn't think you needed each other, guess what you have now? You actually do need each other. And like it or not, you're going to have to find a way to get along. And if you have to find a way to get along, that means all that rhetoric and that bullshit about, I don't need you and you don't need me, that kind of goes away. There's always going to be certain segments and certain pockets that can say that and really don't need one another. We have what we call the outliers, or even the financial outliers. But we're talking about the top 20%. And maybe if you want to include another 10 or 15%, we're talking about 65 to 70% of people, black people, men and women, are living outside of the middle class, and they're struggling. And a lot of the educated people, so to speak, that have degrees, this, that, and the other, don't have degrees in the right space, or had jobs in certain sectors are actually getting eliminated or on the chopping block for getting eliminated as automation increases and it starts to ripple through the workforce. Then black people and people in general have to do what they always done, which is band together, if for nothing else but sheer survival. I always told men, my guys especially, that this stuff will end because it has to. This stuff will end because the environment won't support it. This stuff will end because you're going to get what you wish for. But I always say, be careful what you wish for. It is a very prosperous, uneasy war of words, preferable to a not so prosperous ceasefire between men and women. Is that a trade-off? Is it a trade-off that you want? I was actually listening as much as I could, because I fell asleep on some of it with Angel's hangout with a few of the cohorts of the conscious community, talking about male and female relationships revisited. And a funny thing happened along that way. Cynthia G got checked. Her screaming rhetoric, the leader of the pack for the Black Men Ain't Shit cohort, got checked because the environment is not good, conducive, especially amongst the conscious community, for that kind of crap to go on. I can tell you right here and now, that kind of Black Men Ain't Shit does not ride in the conscious community. And Cynthia G found that out real quick. Because if you wanted that kind of rhetoric, that is the wrong group to do it in, because the conscious community tries to, as best they can, mediate a lot of this back and forth antagonism between Black men and women. They really do. Sometimes they veer toward the simpish side, the guys do, but the thing is, even at that, they try to mediate this back and forth, this angst between men and women, because like them or not, they do. Their thing is about building strong Black male and female relationships. They really are. Not always doing it the right way, but that's what they're at. And Cynthia G found it out real quick, especially in this atmosphere where Black men and women need to be together. If you're going to have if you're going to have Black families, especially in the environment coming up, you're going to need Black men and women to take ownership and accountability and responsibility for their actions in this Black family. And I've noticed in magazines and so-called Black female magazines and other kind of stuff, women are starting to check Black women. They're starting to find out that, okay, as much as we scream at Black men, sooner or later, shaming Black men is not going to make my life better. And a lot of the Xers and the millennials that were in their mid-20s are now in their mid-30s. And they're facing a decision point. At what point do I want or not want a family? And my ideal mate or my ideal woman may or may not exist, and I may or may not find him or her. And I'm gonna have to actually look for workable and good enough. And when you get down to workable or good enough, that means you're going to accept trade-offs. And that's going to go back to what I've been through, what my parents went through, what my grandparents went through, which is not a perfect mate or great mate, but a suitable mate. And a suitable person. That means warts, flaws, and all. And you work through those bumps and grinds just like raw clay, and you shape and mold it into something that's workable. Trust and believe, my parents have been married for, damn near 60 years. They're in their 80s. And trust and believe, I was the firstborn. There was a whole lot of rocky shit that was going on in my childhood. Whole lot of rocky shit in my childhood. Even in the best of marriages, the marriages that work like that, to where men and women come together and they actually work to where it's smooth, is so rare that it's not even worth talking about. And a lot of millennials and the late Gen Xers are finding out that there is no Oz. There is, the yellow brick road is not perfect. And the stuff that they're complaining about is really, stuff they're complaining about is minor. What it basically comes down to is accountability. Not only for you, but your partner. If we plan to get through any of this intact, and the decision point is coming, especially in what we call Black America, or what we want to call Black America, because I keep hearing this stuff between the so-called talented 10th that there needs to be two Black Americas. But let me go ahead and ramble on that real quick, since this is a ramble about the gender war. Because somebody, I don't remember who it was, in my comment section says that Obsidian represents, I don't know why he represents the talented 10th, or he speaks for the talented 10th, but he represents the group of guys that are capable and whatnot, and they're deciding to leave the black community, or there needs to be 2 black communities. That's fine, because all you're doing is falling into what the design for you is anyway, which is assimilation. Assimilation has been on the books since 1945, and you are doing nothing more except what they want you to do. There's nothing stopping you from leaving the black community. There's absolutely zero stopping you from leaving the black community. You can import a wife. You can marry an Asian. You can marry a white woman. You can marry whatever. If you're a halfway capable black guy, you can marry women of any race, because it doesn't matter. In fact, they're looking for you, because if 40% of white men are falling out of the middle class and they're becoming poor, guess what? Now it's about resources. It's not about race. And women are attracted to resources and security. And most women will take a man that fits her needs when she can't find a man in her group preference that fits it. If she can't find a dude, if she's educated and she's got a master's degree and she's got a 6-figure income, and she can find a man that's close to her arena, her socioeconomic level, it doesn't matter whether she's Asian, white, Hispanic, what. She's going to pick that dude that fits her. And same thing with lower class white women. They find a black dude that works with his hands and they can't get an upper class white dude. Guess what they're going to pick? And guess what the United States is doing already with gentrification? If they force you out of the black neighborhoods and force the lower, what we call the lower economic class black people out of the black neighborhoods and into the white neighborhoods, guess who they're going to mix with? It's happening all over, not only in the upper tiers where it used to happen, because at that particular tier it really doesn't matter. It's about class over race. Now they're making it class over race in the bottom tier. Sooner or later, black women will have no choice but to get out and compete with white women for white men. It's going to happen. Or Hispanic compete with Hispanic women for Hispanic men. It's already happening. Why? Because they won't even have a choice. Black women are going to have to compete, and they will have to change. Black men already know this. So I would say within the next 10 years, black people will have to make a decision. Do you want a black community? Because what my commenter says, there needs to be 2 or 3 black communities. Sorry to burst your bubble, but if you split the black community into 2 or 3 parts, there won't be one. How do you dissolve any substance into a fluid? You break it up into smaller parts. Easier to absorb. Same thing when you eat. You don't take a meal and shove it down your throat and put it in your stomach as a whole meal, do you? You chew it up. Why do you chew it up? You grind up your food. Why do you grind it up? To make it into smaller pieces or atomized pieces to do what? To be able to be absorbed and digested. Assimilation is the same way. I've talked to people, and in fact, I talked to a young lady on Torian Rain's, on Locast's hangout. Assimilation, she's a millennial. Assimilation is so normal to her and to people like her that it is not even a discussion. It is just the way that the world is. And if they think, millennials think that's the way the world is, guess what? You're halfway there. You change people's mind about assimilation in interracial marriage or amalgamation. You've already been assimilated. Amalgamation, it's pretty much a done deal. So to have a black community, a viable, vibrant black community, it's going to take a special effort to hold it together. And if there's no will to actually settle your differences and get along, then you won't have a black community. You might as well turn in your black card, go to your nearest white community and start blending in. Why go through the painful process of dragging your heels, kicking and screaming to the inevitable? So the black gender word really makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. Do you want a black community or don't you? Do you want black men to be with you or don't you? That's what it really comes down to. You cannot any longer shame black men into lying. You never really could. Black men are just as hard-headed as black women. They're just as hard-headed. Black men are going to do what they want to do anyway. And the only reason black men are with black women is because they want to be. Contrary to popular belief. Contrary to popular belief, black men are with black women because they want to be. And when they're convinced that they don't want to be, they're not. And saying for black men that want to go over the fence, I say the same thing to black men and women. If you want to go over the fence, go. If you can't find a suitable mate on this side of the fence with black women, and trust and believe, it's a labor of love with black women. It is a labor of love. Go. I don't know why certain people in the YouTube sector or even the black sector shame black men for leaving, especially in an environment where they're encouraged to do so. You can't shame them into leaving when all the TV shows and movies and ads show mixed couples. And for the longest time, black women that wanted to hop the fence and jump over the fence and go with white men, black men for hell, the last 15, 20 years, I would say 30 years. Black women's dating or swirling, as Kristen Kerrison actually puts it, for the last 30 years, I can basically tell you, black men really don't give a fuck who you fuck. They don't really care about you dating white men. They really don't, even in the conscious community. Because I've done it. I've been on radio programs, and I've been in, back then, the conscious meetings, and there would be somebody would call in, or a sister would call in saying that if black men don't get it together, that the black women were going to hop the fence, and black men all said, well, all right, Coach Cheese, why wait? Why wait? It ain't nothing but a thing. Hop the fence. There's almost 3 million more black women than black men. 3 million. There's 3 million excess black women. If the census data is correct, there's 3 million more black women than black men. They're going to have to go somewhere. And I do believe there's a lot of black women that have already crossed over and jumped the fence. And they're just not saying anything about it, because the one-to-one they don't add up. Either one or two things, either they're black, when there are a lot of black women sharing one man. Let's just keep it funky. There's a lot of black women sharing one man. But if 3 million black women just crossed and jumped over the fence, which is a really hard thing to do in America, what you would be left with is a one-to-one relationship. If they literally could absorb 3 million black women crossing over into the to the other sectors, because if you do that, then the balance, since there's more women than men in the country, those excess women will have to find men elsewhere. So there is no black land where black men are kept captive and black women can just leave and there's no repercussions. There will be repercussions, and who knows, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But let me get back on track. I'm rambling. With all this angst that's going on that's between them, this basically non-statistics have been thrown back and forth between men and women. Like I was on my hangout on Saturday, half the people throwing around these stats, these statistics, don't even get in and study the stats. They will lock in on one or two, and that's it. They don't update their stats. They don't bring in other stats as to coincide with it. They don't do any kind of studies. What they do is they grasp onto a couple of pieces of information because they're good talking points, and they keep talking the same points. Cynthia G, even Obsidian, you keep locking in on the same points. Why? Because let's be honest, you have nothing else to talk about. If the gender ward leaves, you're just like soldiers. When the war is over, soldiers have to come home. And when soldiers come home and all they've been doing is fighting for the last 5-6 years, and that has been their job for the last 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden there is no job, what do? They have to find another war. And if the gender war is over or is winding down, just like the Vietnam War was actually over in 1969. Even though it took another 6 years to actually wind it down. The gender war is basically over. The gender war's back has basically been broken. This is the wind down phase. This is the redeployment phase, because all that equipment, all that man and material has to be redeployed back someplace else. They have to all be debriefed, and they have to be retrained for the regular society. This is the phase that you're seeing right now. So Cynthia G being checked. Black women actually checking other black women. And even black men checking other black men. Okay, the war is over, boss. Time to stop working on them. Time to start working on you. Because they can scream. I always knew they can scream and holler. They can point fingers. They can wave their hands and throw conniption fits on the fainting couch. But at the end of the motherfucking day, reality is reality. No stats can actually change your physical reality. They can't. Stats are an average. And you don't want to be on the low end of that average. Black women know that automation, tax cuts is coming for their job. As teachers, look at teachers. Teachers are on strike. That's a female job. Teachers are on strike. We haven't got into the medical and the other things where automation is actually coming in and getting ready to start taking some jobs. And we're not talking about all high end. We're talking about low end too. Cashiers are being replaced. For every cashier that's there, that's 3 jobs. Automation can take the place of 2 people as far as in call centers. We're not even talking about banking. We're not even talking about medical yet. You're going to see downsizing of hospitals. I know a bunch of nurses right now that are struggling to get jobs, struggling to get work. And we're talking about RNs. I mean, the young lady that I know of that's struggling to get a job, she's an RN. She has a master's. She's struggling to find work. That's a female job. This stuff is coming for everybody. This is no time for men or women to be on their high horse. Thanos could snap his fingers right now and half the jobs could be gone. Just like that. Just like that. The AI Thanos could turn on and all of a sudden half the jobs in America could be gone. Most of the jobs are service jobs. They could be gone. And there's nothing any president, any Congress can do about it. Male and female. We have a lot of people pretending and posing like they're in a better position than they are. And I'm one of those guys that track this stuff, and I know that it's bullshit. I knew the gender war was bullshit when I first heard of it. And I knew sooner or later, the adults, which is the environment, was going to force all the kids off the playground. And this is what's happening. So there will be no reboot of the gender war because there's nothing to fight over. And most people now have to worry about their own ass. You know, fuck a relationship. I have to eat first. And for me to eat and continue to eat and continue to live, excuse my language, continue to live, I got to think about self-preservation first. And a woman is a burden. And a lot of single guys that don't have kids, that barely have a woman by choice. I'm a witness. I'm an old dude, so it's easier for me. It's easier not having a woman to carry. And women are finding out like, hey, you know, these dudes are really not coming to really check for us like that. It's not out of them not being able to get anything or have any sex. It's because they have to decide between eating and shelter and and spending money on me. So I need to be, if I want a relationship, I need to be a Netflix and chill girl. I need to be a cool chick. I need not to be a nag. I have no bargaining power. Other than me getting pregnant and putting pressure on him, I have no bargaining power with him. Because I give him a headache. I get on his nerves. He's going to look at his pocket and say, it's cheaper for me not to deal with you guys. So I can get on the phone and check you out, go through 10 or 15 of you and decide, well, before I get on a date, which one is worthy of me spending money on. It's going to get more like that in the future. Because a lot of guys are finding out I'm not going to die if I don't have sex with a woman. I won't die. And once they get over the initial shock and they realize that women cost time, money, and emotional effort. And if for me to survive and be comfortable, or at least keep my head above water, I don't need any extra burdens dragging me down. And that's going to become more of the case and not less of the case. And if that's more of the case and not less of the case, then women will have less and less of a bargaining chip. And that big joker that she has between her legs will become less and less valuable. It already is compared to the time when I was growing up. Coochie was a lot more valuable back then. Women were a lot more agreeable back then. And pussy was a lot more valuable back then because women weren't throwing it around like that. You actually got more of her non-sexual companionship back then, when sex wasn't on the table as much, wasn't on the menu as much. And she knew she had to give more to you than just sex. But now women are throwing that stuff around willy-nilly, and they're a lot less agreeable. I'd rather go back to the time where they were more agreeable and there was less sex. Maybe that time will come again. I guess the environment, if the environment changes, it probably will be, because things go in cycles. There's a lot more women out there that are actually working on their non-sexual relationships rather than actually putting their ass on the line on a continuous basis and put a lot of bodies, or I should say a lot of counts on their body. So in my estimation, there will be no reboot. There can't be a reboot because all the dry brush that caused the flame is actually burnt out. It's time for new growth. It's time for people to start growing up and start focusing on little small things. Pointing your fingers and being stupid is not going to help you as far as a female. Same thing with a guy. Pointing your fingers and being stupid is not going to help you. You do not want to get locked up into this machine, into this meat grinder that this country is pushing you towards. So, with that, I've rambled long enough. Like I said, I'm all over the place. It's going to be really inconsistent. Normally, there's at least a thread that goes through my ramble. And I apologize that I couldn't link these things together. Anyway, here's what it is. It's raw. I did the best I could. But this is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one.